Sandra, I would like to ask you to highlight the importance of this district that you're fighting for, because it is actually one of the most important in the country, and it's very, very large. So just geographically, can you...
Of course. So District 26, and we've recently gone through redistricting, so some of the numbers have changed, because I know you all had the district map memorized before, and you're feeling a little disoriented by this. District 26 is currently represented by State Senator Ted Lieu, who's running for Congress. It's a district that stretches from Hollywood to Pacific Palisades, and then down the coast to Palos Verdes. So it includes Silicon Beach and a lot of startups and a lot of entrepreneurial organizations. And it's about 950,000 residents, so it's actually larger than a congressional house district. And what I'm sure you're going to hear from both of my colleagues here on the panel is that the kinds of issues that we grapple with at the state legislative level as well as at the county level are incredibly impactful for business and technology here in California. And although we tend to focus a lot on Congress, it's probably a lot larger impact for these kinds of offices. So I'm really glad that people are engaged and that we're combining conversations about tech with elections right now.
Let's move on. Sandra, can you please introduce yourself and also talk about your job with the county. What would that be?
Hi, I'm Sheila Kuehl. I served for 14 years in the state legislature, 8 years in the state senate, which is what Sandra's running for, 6 years in the assembly. I was actually a member of the very first committee that had any jurisdiction over IT issues or anything having to do with tech. Actually, we were investigating how the state is getting ripped off by all of the big organizations that sold us so much tech that didn't work. So I began to develop a kind of expertise. At the moment, I'm running for the 3rd District on the Board of Supervisors. A lot of people don't really know what the county does, and of course, as you can see from the number of people at the panel, a lot of people don't even think that there's a connection between government and technology. The county has 5 supervisors, 5 people running something the size of the state of Ohio, with all of the same responsibilities that states have. Healthcare, mental health, public health, transportation, foster kids, juvenile incarceration, jails, environmental protection, the arts, and I could go on, but I don't want to take the entire panel, just telling you what the county does. So with only 5 people, being both the legislative and the executive branch, you only need 3 votes to do anything for the county. How big is the county? If the county were a state, it would be the 8th largest state. It has 10 million people. It's a quarter of the state of California. So every district has 2 million people in it. The 3rd district in which you're sitting is everything that people call the San Fernando Valley. From Westlake Village all the way over to Pacoima, Sylmar, Panorama City, Griffith Park, and that's half of it. The other half is on our side of the mountains, goes from Malibu, Santa Monica, Venice, all the way across through Beverly Hills, Hollywood, Los Feliz, and to the river, and across the river to Atwater Village. So it's twice as big as the Senate district, which, as Sandra told you, is way bigger than a congressional district. So it's a fairly important place, and interestingly enough, it spends $26 billion a year. The whole state budget is barely $100 billion. A quarter of that the county spends. So I look forward to this conversation, and I hope it will be a conversation. Thanks for the invitation.
I think this works. I think I just need to take lead on. There we go. My name is Burke. I'm a candidate for the 62nd State Assembly, so I would be the other house of what Sandra's running for, and my district would fall inside of Sandra's district. I'm just south of here, so I'm Venice, Marina Del Rey, El Segundo, Westchester, Inglewood, Hawthorne. We're 440,000 people, which I thought was pretty substantial until I listened to that, but that's okay. For me, social media actually completely changed the face of my campaign. I started out very much the underdog, and at the end of the day, we ended up with 40% of the vote, and the next person got 20% of the vote. So I'm really happy to be here because it really was an integral part, technology was an integral part of why I'm here. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay. Sandra, why are you running for this district now? And how do you think that you can make an impact for entrepreneurs and technologies?
Well, for me, this is about continuing the work that I've been doing in my career for many years. My career has always been devoted to the public interest, whether that's representing folks directly, primarily survivors of human trafficking or domestic violence, or working on legislation at an advocacy level on a variety of progressive issues. I think the things that we can do in the state senate to really impact technology and entrepreneurship here in LA is help to bring more capital here. So if you look at, and I'm probably not telling you guys anything new that you don't already know because you're living this on a daily basis, but about 50% of venture capital is in Silicon Valley, and the percent down here is under 10. I mean, that's just astounding because Silicon Beach has such a potential for growth, and it's really important to the entire Los Angeles economy because this is the area that really drives entrepreneurship in LA. And we're at a critical moment here where we can see an explosion because we have the potential and the reality already happening of really linking entertainment and technology, and that is where we're going next on tech, right? That's the future. So LA needs to be leading that future, and one of the things I'm looking to figure out ways to do in the state legislature is to use government's convening power to bring together venture capital and folks who are interested in really investing in new startups and growing this industry with the businesses that are already here and the ones that are coming.
Sheila, you're a former child actor, so you know entertainment. We are in a place where technology and entertainment now are colliding and coming together. What do you think that is more exciting about what is happening right now with this world of synchronization?
Well, I think there's really two things that people want to look at in terms of what this panel's about. One of them was the original question, which is how are we able to use technology in running for office, and how is that different? And I think you know a lot about how people are trying to use, Facebook and Twitter and lots of different social media in terms of getting the word out and getting it out better and trending and becoming very well known to people. The other thing, though, is really what is government able to do and should it do in terms of this emerging area, especially entrepreneurship. And the question about entertainment is a very good one because Hollywood, for a very long time, has been sort of on the downfall. They've been kind of losing. People aren't shooting here. Everything's gone either out of town or out of state or out of country. But so much is done by technology now, it almost doesn't matter. You sit in Sri Lanka and you're doing the titles for my next film. But government has a responsibility to attempt to bring people together and say, this is the place where you want to locate. This is a welcoming place. So I think there's two things we can do. One is create campuses. I'd like to create campuses where academia, entrepreneurs, venture capital, the government area that can bring it together, as well as marketing experts, can come together. A lot of places do this in the private industry, but not really on a very big scale. Hollywood just got a lot of money to bring business there, and that I think they can do. The other thing is, entrepreneurs, I think, are thinking about what they can do, thinking about what they want to offer. But I think in the way private industry does in switch pitch, for instance, is government needs to say, these are the apps that we need. We're not able to count these people. We don't know what's happening in the juvenile camps in terms of whether children are learning, young people are learning to read. Here's what we need, entrepreneurs, because I don't think people who are inventing really much care about what it is they get to use their skills to do, unless it's bad. And these are good things. So I think in terms of not only entertainment, which we can build a place for and help bring people together, but also in terms of how government itself invests in tech. Whether it's, as I said, identifying the apps that we need, which I'd love to do, I also would like to hire a pirate, that's the way I think, or a hacktivist, because government is always getting ripped off. Government has no money to do beta testing, and so it often will buy a product, and the product, we don't have anybody inside going, you're kidding me. Did you look at that? We saw the issue with Obamacare, for instance, when everyone said, oh my God, they're rolling it out and they're not ready for it. Well, it turned out great a year later. Millions of people signed up for it. But there was no money to try it out at first and no one to say there are at least 27 glitches. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in the tech field to work with government.
There is indeed, and it is not that the government has a small budget, so the money goes somewhere.
Well, but part of the problem is not the size of the budget, it's that we have certain types of government contracting rules that push us toward the cheapest bidder, but without adequate comparison for what kind of quality we're getting as well. So that's one of the other areas for reform.
Listen, I also think what happens is, yes, there's enough of a budget, but we also have, I think Sheila is an exception to the rule that she is so technology, has an advanced understanding of technology. I think, legislation in general is always very far behind when it comes to technology. We're always trailing way behind. We don't get things done quickly enough. And I think that, it's really important. I don't think that there was enough young people there to be savvy, new thinkers there, to really question how the system was being implemented and if it was being implemented in a proper fashion. I think that's part of the issue as well.
The other thing is the law is always far behind technology in a way that can advantage technology for a while, but then you can completely get slammed by it. Think about the apps for people wanting to find rides. And now think about the fact that you've applied to be a taxi cab driver, you've waited 15 years for your medal, you're now paying a whole bunch of money to be a taxi. And these people are driving people around with no oversight, they haven't spent any money, etc. Eventually you're going to organize against them. And you can see that these conflicts will be resolved by the law. And guess what? The law is made by three people like us. So there needs to be some good understanding of the good parts of these apps and some recognition that you can't go unregulated forever. I mean, the internet might be open, but if you're going to offer rides, you're going to serve food, whatever you're going to do, eventually there has to be some rapprochement between your new technologies and people who are serving.
But I think one of the other things that we have to keep in mind is that, as Sheila said, which, by the way, I feel like we should say Senator Kuehl or something. As Sheila said, frequently legislation is really lagging behind technology. And one of the problems is that when we're behind, legislators are still trying to legislate in this very detailed way that can get into the how of how technology works and can become out of date very quickly, can inadvertently stifle innovation. We have to get to a point where policymakers and legislators are looking more at the why or what is the goal of the legislation rather than legislating the details of how technology should adapt, because we will never keep up with technology and we shouldn't try to throttle it in that way.
So how do we change that? How do we make the government more efficient and faster?
Autumn.
Yeah, right? I'm really efficient. No, I mean, listen, I think it is. It's bringing in new ideas, making sure that your legislators are aware of, the shared economy or whatever the new, issues are in technology. But, you need people with energy that are prepared to come and show up to these kinds of events and really spend time interacting with everybody in the community. Otherwise, you guys are so quick to create something new that even some of the younger people will have trouble keeping up. And if we don't have this kind of relationship, then you will get left behind. And that's why it's really important to be at these things when you have the chance to sit down with any one of us or any of your local leaders. It's really important we know what's coming up, and really only you can really share that with us.
So,
do you mind if I just add one thing? I was talking actually to a sitting legislator whose name I won't use publicly, and we were talking about this challenge of how do we engage the tech sector and make sure that we're having that informative insight going into the legislative process. And I said, well, it doesn't seem that hard. Like, call them, ask them. It seemed to me that government is just not asking for that kind of input. And he said, they won't take my call. And without telling you this individual's name, he was not a slouch. Let me tell you, I take his call. So one of the things that we have to do is we have to build more relationships between the tech community and government. And we have to figure out ways to make sure that the tech community realizes the relevance of government and that government is consistently reaching out and building these connections. Because if we can't even get on the phone, even through a landline together, we are really going to have a problem working together.
So, government generally relies on an organization or 2 or 6 that will represent a sector.
Right.
Because individuals calling me, A is going to say A, and B is going to say B, and C is going to say C, and that doesn't help. I want to know, is there some consensus? And you're probably not all going to participate in some arena in which consensus is built about what to do with writer apps, but there's a bill pending. It's an important thing. So it's important to make certain that your business, your startup, whatever you've incorporated, even if you're just thinking about it, is somehow connected. When you come to something like this, it helps organize. And organization is what gets the information to government. Because government's big, it can step on you. And they don't even know sometimes, because you need the information in order not to do that. The other thing is, I don't always want government to be efficient. I want it to be effective. Efficient is another word for cheap in many people's minds. Oh, this is very efficient. We did it for 2 cents. Well, yeah, you did it for 2 cents, but it failed after $3 million investment. We maybe should have spent 3 cents. So I think we always need to have the best information. But it was only in the early 90s that we started even having committees about these issues.
To get a little, raise hands and ask you guys, who of you knows your representatives? Please. Okay, come on, think hard.
Where do you guys live?
Okay, you guys are local to Santa Monica? They are. Who voted for you third? Okay.
That's good. That's a good percentage. It's higher than the general percentage. That's more than 18% of the room.
I think there was a question.
Shall we wait until the end for questions for you then? Okay.
I mean, it kind of relates to that, but that's totally fine.
Okay, oh, you want, okay.
So, I'm just kind of curious why you think maybe a startup might shy away from going to the government, because I feel like a company like Lyft or Uber might not even exist if they went to the government first. So it kind of gave you avenues for a whole new industry by staying away from the government, being creative, and then, I mean, here we are today, but I feel like maybe they wouldn't exist if they were with the government from the beginning.
I didn't mean to indicate that anyone needed to go to the government when they're beginning or getting started or doing their business or whatever. All I'm saying is somebody's going to get interested in regulating you after you become an industry of some kind. And that the relationship, and I'm not saying just know your local person, senators are 1 out of 40, but your senator can take leadership in the area and can really understand it, because trust me, taxi cab drivers are all there already, talking about how terrible this is. And it doesn't have to be you or the people even who invented the apps, or who are using them, or who are even making money off of them. I'm just saying that some organization has to understand that side so that there's a voice to it.
And on that point, absolutely, I'm with Sheila. You shouldn't come to us first. Look, go, create your apps, create an industry, of which Uber and Lyft have done. But right now, Uber and Lyft have gone through several legislative different issues, whether it's about the auto insurance for those drivers, or whether it's about whether they have to have a license with the city. So at some point, they need a representative that works with us. Because, for example, me, the Assembly will be voting on whether or not Lyft drivers need to have a different kind of insurance. And my campaign manager and I were just talking about this yesterday. A lot of things that come up with technologies don't exist yet. Like, for example, this new auto insurance, it's not, obviously it can't be a commercial license, because some Lyft drivers or Uber drivers only drive 2 days a week or whatever. So there has to be a new creation of a new kind of insurance for them as well. And we can be your voice to a higher level at that insurance or at that institute.
This is also not a new issue. Think about people with street vendors. You have licensed restaurants. You have A's and B's and C's. You have a very big, organized sort of governmental effort about restaurants. And you have street vendors. The street vendors say, I'm not a restaurant. Or when trucks first came, food trucks. Big issue. So I think it's worth it. I'm not saying anything should be stifled. I'm simply saying that somebody's going to have to articulate this so that these aren't stifled, so that there can be. Which is why I like the idea of the campus, then know ahead of time how to deal with it.
So, Autumn, you are a successful businesswoman. You have a company. You have been a very successful real estate agent. Why running for office now?
I had a real estate agency for about 15 years, and then I also started a small business that did consulting for energy efficiency. So I had an assessment company and LED lighting companies. And what happened for me, and also we represented in-home care and senior housing. And so what happened for me is that over time I found that a lot of my skills that I had are really pertinent to my district. For those of you who don't know, my district has, obviously Silicon Beach is a part of it. We have Madison Square Garden has come to our district, and we've seen a lot of business and a lot of change in small business and for small business because of that. And so it became really important to me as just a private citizen who loves their district and their city. And as they redrew the lines, I found that I had even more to offer this new district to really take part. Now, I also do come from a family that has been involved in the process for over 50 years. My mom was an assemblywoman in '68. She was a supervisor. She was a congresswoman. And so I do have this background. But really, I think as a small business person, is really what drove me over the edge. I feel like it's really time for the state of California to be much more friendly. What are you laughing at? It just drove you over the edge. It drove me over the edge. It drove me over the edge. Trust me, I did. It really is. It really was. Because the state of California, I think, it's really time for us to step up as a state and to be much more friendly to entrepreneurs and to small business and to large business. I just feel like we can no longer say that it's really important that we need jobs and that we need money for general services to do all the other great things we need to do, but constantly never really take the steps we need to be leaders for entrepreneurs and small business. So that really was. It drove me actually over the edge. There you have it.
Okay. And let's go back a little bit to the money comment. Startups do need funding. Sometimes with just $50,000, $100,000, they can reach to the next level, but it's very hard to find that money. SBA loans are very tedious. Not everybody qualifies, and if you try to get federal government grants, it's like you need to have a lot of money to hire lawyers to represent you in the first place. Is there a way that within your seats you could help maybe promote loans for new startups at that level, 50,000?
Well, I think one of the places we can intervene is when there are government contracts for services and things that a entrepreneurial business can provide and can be the contractor in those. So we already have things in place where we give preference to what are called minority-owned businesses or women-owned businesses. We also have hiring agreements where hiring should go first to folks who are with challenges in terms of their resume, lower skills, and need that kind of employment opportunity. But one of the other things we can do is look for startups, look for businesses that could use this kind of work and have the skills and talents necessary for the contract, but that it could be a real boost to their efforts. So that's one kind of approach that we can take. And the other is that the reality is that the representatives for a geographic area are able to influence some of these kinds of questions. So having an elected official that represents Silicon Beach and can point to some great providers and businesses in the area is one way that we can connect them with these kinds of opportunities.
Let me also say again that government is very interested in people who can't take care of themselves getting services. You think about what governments do. You may think about, the expo line, but you should also think about 13,000 foster kids and 1 million poor people who get their health care through the county. There are tremendous opportunities within county budget, within state budget, for the kinds of services that technology can help provide. We're just on the edge of it now, and I have to say that government hasn't thought clearly enough about it. But as you see, we want to provide services for, let's say, homeless people. And there are 47 agencies that provide services for homeless people, and they never talk to each other. And we go, oh, they never talk to each other. Well, they don't have the ability to because there's no platform for them to talk to each other. Nothing's been pitched to the county about it or to the city. And I think that there are tremendous opportunities, honestly, for entrepreneurship and the kinds of grants. I mean, donations are piddly compared to what government does in grants. I mean, $1 million is budget dust to a government. Now, I don't want to say that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm saying I really believe the opportunities are there if people who are thinking about creating think about the need. And frankly, we can even start a commission that does nothing but match the need of a government to do good with people able to help them do it through technology.
On that note, I have to say I was a part of Hack for LA that was hosted at the Los Angeles City Hall, and it was fantastic to see 400 hackers just brainstorming on so many issues. And the winning team was a trio, 3 kids, 16 years old, and they put together an app to help the homeless to find resources. So there is, the voice is helping. We're glad to help.
Yeah, I do think. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
I do think that LA has some great examples right now of how government is combining with the tech sector and finding new solutions on some of the problems that have challenged us for a long time. So Ron Galpern, the city controller, is making a lot of efforts to make the city's data more available and accessible to the public, to be able to look at what kind of trends and come up with solutions using that data that the government has had but hasn't been able to do things with. It's increasing transparency. But we're also seeing real gains by, for example, LAPD had a trial run of using big data to analyze crime trends and figure out where to put police officers on the streets. And in just 6 months, they had, I believe, an 18% drop in crime as a result of that. So that's just a pilot program, and there's a lot more opportunities for that kind of coordination.
For me, I think it's really important. I mean, the government applications are obviously really important for all of us. But I think to create an environment where you all come here and create and are more creative than we could ever be is really important. So on the state level, for me, a priority actually really is to have some sort of incentives when angel investors come here that they don't ask you to move to another state because you can maximize your dollars there or take you away, that we create some sort of system in which we can incentivize angel investors and other investors to come invest in your companies and really spur on that kind of creative. Because even if you guys create something that we didn't originally think we could use, for example, the algorithm the police are using, and you use it for something else, and I find out, for example, Uber, we can use that on our metro lines to trace our buses and to make sure everything's on schedule. Not the original application, but once you're here and you do something really creative, I can find a way to apply it. So to create an environment where we can do that, and kind of like New York is doing, is creating an environment where they're like now second, I think, in the United States for encouraging angel investors and business investors to come. So I think it's really important that we get to work on that immediately.
One of the challenges that we find getting people to polls is that they don't trust government. So everything that we are doing here is to try and get that message out, to tell them that we are here to help, that we can listen, and that the young electorate can be represented. It doesn't it is important for them to realize that the role matters. What can we do to incentivize that? Because in the United States, especially in local elections, has a very, very small turnout.
Two things. The people who don't want you to trust government are people who feel overregulated by the government, and therefore if the government just went away, they could just make a lot more money. The problem really is, whether you trust government or not, there is going to be a government. This room, for instance, is nothing but an empty room full of chairs, and then people come and sit here and it has content, it has purpose. The government's just like that. There's 40 chairs in the state Senate, there's 80 chairs in the state assembly, there's 5 chairs in the Board of Supervisors. It makes a difference who fills them because they're going to have a point of view, and there is going to be someone in that chair. So I think collaboration is always the best way to go. It's not that you can always trust government, but if you ignore it, it's partly your own fault if something happens and you don't like it. So I think we can collaborate, and really in the way that both Sandra and Autumn have said, make something really positive happen in synergy.
I'm really excited about the ways that we can use technology to get people more involved in the electoral process and in government, because part of the lack of trust is a lack of understanding and engagement, and then all you get is sort of a more removed veneer that says they're not working for me. It's all corruption, it's all inefficiency, and not to say that there aren't problems in that respect, but pulling away from it is the opposite of what we need. What we need is more good people getting engaged so that we can change those aspects of it. So some of the things I'm excited about are things like online voter registration, thinking about being able to vote online someday when we have the right kind of controls in place. Also, there's I can't give them proper credit because I can't remember the name, but there's a group that's putting together a website and an app that you can access when you're on the go that explains propositions, ballot measures. There we go. Okay, what's the name so I can give you a proper shout out? See Political. So do you want to say what you're doing? You'll do a better job.
Yeah, sure. We're explaining the confusing language on ballot propositions in a 1 to 2 minute animated video clip, and then created an app so you can save your answer, yes, no, or I'm not sure, and use your phone as your cheat sheet in the ballot.
Isn't that fantastic?
Right, I want your card afterwards. For me, actually, I wish I had a good answer. Like I said, social media changed the face of my campaign. I went from nobody knowing who I was to all of a sudden moving to the lead position. But how do you get people out? We had 18% show up this election. I don't know, actually. I need to talk to all of you and find out how we can use technology to better pull people, not just from looking at our Facebook pages, not just tweeting kind of some of the information, but actually how do we pick you guys up and move you out to the polls or get you to sign up for your absentee ballots? That's a conversation that I think I want to have with this group because I think you're the perfect group to have it with.
And it's a pretty critical moment because one of the things that's happening in campaigns right now is that campaigns are becoming more efficient and using technology, and one of the ways that they're using it is to target the most likely voters and the ones that are really focused on this particular candidate and most likely to vote for this candidate. And that's smart electoral strategy, absolutely, but that means there's less and less outreach to the people who don't fall into that category. So in some ways we're going in a direction of less and less broad community engagement. So we need to figure out how to use technology to bring more people into that stream.
There's also an issue with polling. Do you know how polling is done? They call your home phone number. How many people have a landline anymore? Really? Okay. You might have one to get those annoying calls and let them call your landline and then never have to deal with them. But polling itself leads people to think one way or another. And you saw what just happened to Mr. Cantor, who lost his election big time and thought he was going to win by, 23 points. But I don't want anybody to have my mobile phone number in a phone, directory anywhere. So it makes it a little more difficult. How do you poll appropriately, knowing I've got 50% women, 50% men. I have people of color and not people of color. I have people with money and people with no money. You know, you're supposed to have a sampling, and you don't always know that. So I think that's another challenge, thinking about how to help people do good polling in an age of technology.
We can help with that too, Sheila.
I got another one.
Save your answer.
I want to ask you
on
a
the back
question.
end.
Cool.
Social media could help with that, though. I mean, we've seen how social media can be accountability. It can be.
The problem is with social media is that, like right now, you had 18% vote, but 48% of that 18% was seniors.
Right.
So it was people who aren't on, you know, they go on social media to see their grandkids. They're not there to fully integrate or poll or whatever. But anyone who finds a solution for sending mail, I will give a bonus. I mean, we spend a fortune on political mail. We spend an absolute fortune. We waste a tremendous amount of paper. I mean, I went so far to get recycled paper and soy ink, but so what? It's still paper. What I would love is if we could work with the technology community, find a way to deliver, it can't be email because not everyone opens their email and it goes to junk and whatever, but a way to cut down on that mail would be really worth its weight. And hopefully if we found a really entertaining way to do it, then people would actually open it and interact with it, and it wouldn't be just a text message, vote for Autumn. It would be something where you could actually really see our message. That would be, I think, phenomenal.
Carrier pigeon.
I know, basically, I'd almost take carrier pigeon at this point. When you think most people got 200, between all of us, there are households that got 200 pieces of mail from a political candidate in 1 month.
And that is not sustainable.
On the other hand, all I did was mail.
Right, and that's what I did too.
My opponent spent $1 million on television, which people were telling me came $2 million. They were seeing in Riverside, the segmenting is not as precise as when you send someone a piece of mail. The other problem is clutter. You're not getting very much in your mailbox anymore. That's why the post office is going out of business. So when you take one of my pieces of mail out of the mailbox and it's cute or funny or thought-provoking just on its cover, for 3 seconds you might open it up and it says, Sheila Kuehl! Okay, it went right through my head, but I remember that name if I got 3 pieces of mail from you. My opponent did no mail, lost by 8 points in the primary, having outspent me at least 2 to 1. So we have to find a way, if we're going to substitute something, that you get someone's attention. And I'm telling you, all of the media now, it's clutter and quick, too quick. Facebook ads, everything goes by very quickly, and I don't know whether it's for hernias or for a hen. And one and then the other, it doesn't matter.
So, social media, now that we mentioned, you have stories. I'm sure you have stories as to how you have engaged your followers' responses to that. Sandra has stories because, as we all know, she was kicked out of Congress because she wanted to talk about women's health, and that put her in the spotlight, and really she's where she's now.
Well, we do a lot of engaging social media on the campaign, and I was doing a lot of it as an advocate previously. I mean, it kind of runs the gamut. Thunderclap, recruiting volunteers there. We've used it as a way to have phone banking remotely, get people connected and volunteering regardless of where they are. There's a lot of ways to use social media to spread, not only voter engagement, but just getting out information about issues that are important, getting people to be more engaged on ballot measures and on bills. I have done things like design, a GIF or like a photo, right, that everybody shares to get out the word of, vote no on such and such or pass Prop 30, right? Those kinds of campaigns that we use those images to repeat the message over and over are one of the big tools around social media. But one of the things I'm concerned about, and I think we have to think about, because we don't want to in any way limit social media use, but we have to think about how do we keep it safe for everyone. Because it can be an incredibly difficult place for some communities, and there is some real bullying that's happening there, and there's some very interesting conversations that I think we need to have around, bystander intervention and online safety and those types of questions that I don't think government can legislate necessarily, but we need to help in convening and help in coming up with some solutions here.
On the other hand, government sometimes has to catch up. For instance, if you have a law in California against bullying, and it's about face-to-face bullying, punching somebody in the face, hurting them at school, whatever, I wrote anti-discrimination laws for schools. And suddenly I was asked to write a sample state law about cyberbullying, because that was a very big part of harming people that was just beginning to be recognized, especially when young people committed suicide because of it. Got a lot of people's attention. To write a statute, and that's really what you do in the legislature, about cyberbullying is very interesting, because you have to describe it. In order to stop something, you have to say what it is. So we had to engage a number of people who wanted there to be continuing freedom of expression, but also wanted to understand you had to take responsibility if you were helping to kill somebody by what you were doing. I think you guys ought to think about running for office. I know you're all going to smile at me, but it is one of the most fantastic things to do, because you have to create the law, and the law touches everybody's lives. And it should do it in a fair way, in a balanced way, in a way that helps, but in a way that says, no, you can't do that. How about if we do this? I think it's fascinating.
For me, listen, I was cyberbullied for like 4 weeks. It felt like every 15 minutes, I just got beat up. And as a candidate, you kind of expect that. But on the other hand, when I first started my campaign, like I said, no one knew who I was because of Facebook, because of Twitter, because I got to share my message with so many people. And I got to be really focused about it, because obviously Facebook allows me to do that. And then it also allows me to cross-reference those who actually vote with my Facebook page and all of those things. And so we got to really utilize it to draw votes, which I think was probably one of the first times people really started doing that in our community. So I'm a huge, I think social media, although I wish they didn't beat me up and put my address on the internet and on Facebook and make little blurry pictures of me burning things down and all the crazy things that they do when you're a candidate. I think it's an amazing tool, and I don't know how we could at this point function without it as candidates. I just can't imagine. It just doesn't seem actually possible.
Okay, we have a great challenge right now in terms of women in technology. We don't have even close to enough. That is also the case with women leadership. Studies say that is partly because of the culture, partly because of legislation that is taken away under school programs in the past. How do we change that in the future from your seats?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that we can do. I believe it's the National Science Foundation that has a program right now with LAUSD where they're really investing in curriculum development and training and professional development for teachers, as well as just putting more resources into schools to make sure that computer science classes and those types of options are available for students, but also just working with teachers on how do we change the mindset of students when they think about what their career possibilities are, especially girls. Children of color, but especially girls across all racial and ethnic groups. Because when you look at the percentage of girls and young women who take AP classes, right, advanced placement classes, it's right around 50%. There's parity. But when you look at the percentage who take AP computer science, it's drastically lower. And we have to change those visions, those ideas about who can be in those classes and who can pursue those kinds of degrees. I distinctly remember being 18 and applying to college and talking to my mom about what I was going to major in. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do at that moment, and one of the things that she said to me is, you're pretty good with computers, right? You have to keep in mind, this is in comparison to my mom, and she was still like writing out the steps for how to log on to email and things like this. So it wasn't necessarily that high of a compliment. But what I said to her in response is, no, Mom, you don't understand. And I still remember the kid's name, Josh Treese. in my class is so far ahead of me, it's too late. I'm 18. I would have had to have started this much earlier if I was going to major in computer science. Now, at the ripe old age of 33, I find that a ridiculous statement by an 18-year-old. But on the other hand, there's a way in which I was right. Because you really do need to feel like you're getting invested in these things and seeing this as a career possibility long before you're picking out a college major. So that's why it's so important that we have those kind of opportunities in the schools.
And that is why culture is so important. Representation of women in media is so important. We don't have role models. We don't see that, and it's so we don't think we can be it.
Well, but we have some programs that are starting to change that through things like Girls Who Code, right? I'm actually really honored to have the endorsement of Reshma, the founder of Girls Who Code, because I think she's leading the way in bringing together those kind of technology programs and investment in girls with electoral politics and government. And that's going to be a big part of this change.
I have to say, all these feminists, before you go on, they are so involved in the community. They are so involved in women issues and issues to do with equality, women's health, and even out of office. They organize volunteer groups, volunteer brigades. The last one that I know Sandra organized had to do with human trafficking, and it was a ridiculous law that was not completed. It wasn't commanded. They didn't describe who was to implement it. So please, Sheila, continue.
You get a lot of signals from your culture about what you're good at and what you're not good at. It has nothing to do with the truth. And I remember when I was asked to speak at a career assembly for young women, it was only for young women, in middle school. And I said to them, how many of you think that you're dumber now than you were in elementary school? And 80% of them raised their hands. And it really has to do with message. You know, that when you start to be a teenager, you get different messages than you do in first grade and second grade where people aren't noticing that much. And so that's one thing, is the signals. The other thing is, I think everybody's capable of everything if you could remove all the barriers. And we just have to be sort of sensible about what the barriers are. I think mentoring is good. I think somebody gave me a hand up. I'm going to give somebody a hand up, whatever, whoever they are. I think that's really an important part.
For me, it's a lot like Sheila said, it's the opportunity. And so I focus a lot of the time on things like STEM programs, which we work really hard on with SpaceX and places that are in our district. But also with companies like Chase that have link programs that will connect your industry with our schools, and they will pay to do that or pay to connect with their industry. Those programs for me are incredibly important for my district. I have one of the most challenged district areas in the state of California, which is West Athens and Westmont. And so connecting children at an age before they're 18 and showing them that they too can put together a computer from scratch at 9 years old if given the tools to do so. I think if they have that opportunity before they're jaded, before they feel left behind, is a huge priority that really, I hope that all of you commit to as well as connecting with our school students, our young students, to really show them what you do, create additional career pathways for them so that they can see the options very, very early in their education.
And it's not just at early educational ages, it's also the higher education level. So here in Southern California, we educate more engineers, but they all leave, unfortunately. So we need to make sure that we have both the employment opportunities for them, but also that we're linking UCLA, the private schools too, the public higher education universities in this area with the jobs that are here, and through entrepreneurship programs and internship programs that help to keep the educational process cutting edge and keeping it up to pace with what the sector needs, but making sure that those job linkages are created so that we keep that kind of vision and creativity here as well. And that's another way that we can encourage diversity in the sector. There's a program, I believe it's a STEP IT up, step it up America, right? That is both training and educating, but also hiring thousands of women by 2020, right? So that kind of commitment to that we're going to invest in creating the workforce that we then want to hire, that's the kind of corporate leadership that can really make a difference.
I was given the 5 minutes about 5 minutes ago, but I would like to, if you guys have any questions, just take them really quick. Okay.
First, you're all great. We shall all vote for you. No diversity. What are your thoughts on state and local government providing free and open public Wi-Fi? Very relevant discussion. I haven't talked about it all.
No, you're right.
I actually will give you a slightly different answer on this. I think that it depends on the area. You know, I'm really interested in it being widely available, high-speed access, but I think some neighborhoods have this pretty much covered, and I'd like to make sure that at least in starting this program, we're initially investing in some of the neighborhoods where the access levels are the lowest. So, you know, eventually a blanket perhaps, but that's a lot of bandwidth, that's a lot of investment, and I think we should start by targeting the communities where there really are low levels of access in the home and aren't quite as able to get to, you know, tech cafe, web cafe, and stuff like that.
Any more questions?
Wait, let me just say one more thing. I'm old enough to remember when television was free. And it was a wonderful thing. It was the most amazing revolution. Because it wasn't free because you had to buy the television, but you didn't subscribe to cable. You didn't subscribe to anything. They weren't making $1 bazillion off of you. It was just free television. And I like that idea very much. So of course, if you're going to live in a time of scarcity, and you say we have to roll it out, let's roll it out in those communities that aren't able to buy it at the moment because everything's so commercialized. But I really do favor government providing the ability for everyone to be able to access the internet in some way. It's interesting, some of the third world countries skipped the wire part. They had nothing, and now they've got Wi-Fi. Because they could go from the 19th to the 21st century. We're still recovering from the 20th century.
Well, and Sheila, we're actually still paying for free television. So it goes to show how we're at.
In relation to technology, what specific strategies have you used to engage millennials in the voter process, and how do you measure the effectiveness of that outreach?
I wish my social media person was here so he could actually give you the metrics of it, but we follow it very, very carefully. But really the only way that I have found to do it is using social media. And we do, I'm one of the more frugal probably of the campaigners people. And so for everything we do, if we don't see a return as far as voter interaction, we stop it. And for us, like I said, our big issue and one of our biggest things was actually taking the voter file, because like Sandra said, what happens is when you mail, we only mail the high propensity voters as a general rule. But on Facebook, I can download the whole voter file and interact. I can afford to do that on Facebook, where I can't afford to do that on mail. So right now, that's the only way that I'm able to really make that connection. You know, and we saw a great return on it. That's why we continue to do it. We really did see we had a higher propensity younger voter than I think we would have had we not.
Social media is also very useful in terms of measuring instantly whether people are opening what you're sending, whether they're accessing what you're sending, so that you can try 2 different ways of saying something, and within 45 minutes you know this one's doing better than that one. So it actually helps you to frame your message. It helps you to frame, whatever it is that gets people to look at you, not just let you go by. The problem is in measuring how many millennials voted. And people do put their age when they sign up to vote, when they register to vote. But it takes a lot of machination of the data to compare those who did vote against the rules that include their age and separate them out by age. So I don't know whether any of you have seen a study about the different age group votings. What I saw from 2 years ago showed that millennials, well, that younger people did not vote in nearly the numbers as older.
We do use a system where we have the age really readily available, so we're able to cross-connect. And we check actually almost every month and 2 weeks before an election. We check if you vote absentee, we check how old you were, where you were. When we called you, if you said yes, undecided, or no, we cross-reference all of that. And so the more data we have access to, the more able we are to better figure out what we're going to do. That's what happens when you're on a budget, I guess.
So we are very grateful that you made it. Thank you so much for
Thank you guys.